steak and kidney pie, a classic of all classics. Welcome back once again to howtocookgreatfood.com. Let's get on with this beautiful, and I mean it is beautiful, steak and kidney. So we're going to get started with these three first. So what I've got here is I've got some beef. You can use any cut of beef you like, a cheap stewing type beef, or like I say, anything you want. Cut it into kind of fairly small pieces. I've got 1 onion chopped, and I've got 2 teaspoons of dried thyme. If you've got fresh thyme, that would be really nice as well, wouldn't it? A little bit of salt and pepper and some oil. We're going to get this started first. Now we are obviously going to be adding some kidney to this, but we've got a long way to go with this before we get to that point. Let's get to the cooker and get going with this. So you're going to need a pot or a pan or something like that. I'm actually doing it in this pan so you can just see it a little bit more sort of clearer, but you could just do this in a saucepan. I've got some oil in there. You can use any type of oil you want. I'm actually using a olive oil. I'm going to get those onions in, and on and above medium heat. I've just put the heat on. We're going to go for about 3 minutes. So just 2 to 3 minutes just to get the onions on their way. We're now going to drop in our meat, our cubed steak. To that I'm going to add a nice generous pinch of black pepper. The same with salt. And I'm adding the dried thyme. If you wanted a little bit of garlic in here, but I don't think it's necessary. Okay, about 5 to 6 minutes, stirring every now and then. This is going to take quite a while to cook actually, because we've got to get this meat super tender, but it's really worth it. Okay, so a nice bit of colour onto the meat now. Now next up we're going to add some stock. I've got a beef stock here. We're going to pour this in. Quite a lot. You want to sort of cover it by a centimetre or so. Now if you wanted to use a chicken stock or a vegetable stock, it would not be the end of the world. Right, we're going to get the heat down, not to a simmer, just above a simmer. We're going to put a lid on that, and that needs to go now for an hour. No need to touch it, it's fine. Okay, so I've just taken the lid off, and that has been an hour. And that meat's really nice and tender now. Next up, we're now going to drop in our kidney. Here's my kidney there, and I've cut that into a very similar size to the beef. And the kidney just cooks really quickly. It'll cook in 5 minutes. It's like 300 grams of kidney there. So we're going to stay on this fairly low heat for about another 5 minutes. I'll give it a stir every now and then. Okay, and that's beautiful. What we're going to do is turn the heat off. Now this is too wet to put in the pie, but we also want it like this because we want some of this, which is going to be our gravy. So we're going to separate the steak and kidney from the moisture. Not all of it, but most of it. I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so you can see here I've got all of the juices from the meat. There's the meat, just separated that out. What we're going to do now is we're going to add some corn flour or cornstarch. Corn flour and cornstarch, same thing, different name. Let's just get that in there. We're going to start with that amount and see if it works. This is going to thicken this up. So you can add as much or as little of the cornstarch as you like to get it to the consistency that suits you. I'm just going to break out any little lumps in there. Yeah, I think that's kind of good for me. That's a nice little kind of gravy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take about a quarter of this and add it back to the meat. The rest of it's going to be our gravy. Let me get that into the meat, but first let me get these little lumps of flour out. There you go, so we've got a lovely little gravy to go on top of the pie once it comes out of the oven. So set that aside, and there's our beautiful filling. Now you can do this the day before, on the same day, up to you. Prepare it up. Let's move on to the pastry. Okay, let's get on with this pastry. So I've got water, cold, flour, butter and salt. Now there's two things you need to know about making a simple short crust pastry like this. Is everything needs to be cold. The butter needs to be cold, the water needs to be cold, and ideally your hands need to be cold, or we're going to do this in the machine. But yeah, just keep everything that's cold, even the bowls and everything, keep it nice and cold. So the second thing is the amount of flour or dry ingredients to the amount of butter or fat. So you need twice as much flour, half as much fat. So I've got 300 grams of flour, 150 grams of butter. Now, if you want, you can mix this. You can use lard, which is a beef fat, or some shortening. You can do a third if you want, like 50 grams of each. You kind of, some people do that. I just like to use just straight butter. And I've got like a teaspoon there of salt. So cold, keep the bowls cold. And always remember that you need twice as much dry as you do fat. Let's get my machine out. Okay, so I've got my flour in there, and we're now going to drop in the butter, which I've just cut up. And like I say, it's nice and hard. We're going to add that salt. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the lid on, and we're going to go just for like 15 seconds or so, okay? Okay, so the flour and the butter have been mixed, and we've got little lumps there of butter. Don't worry about that, that's exactly what you want. Now we're going to add some water, and again, cold. I'm using some ice water. Just want to add a little bit now. Get the machine back on, then we'll add a little bit more. Okay, so while the machine's going, I'm going to start to add a little bit more water. We want to put in like 100 ml. So it's not a lot of water really. And it's going to start to gather up. And in about 1 or 2 minutes, in fact here she goes now. She's turning herself into a little ball. Perfect. Okay, so there you go. So you've got yourself a nice pastry right there. Beautiful. And it feels really cold. Let's get it out. Okay, so it's looking beautiful. What we want to do is just get it into a nice ball, and don't over press it, and you don't want the heat of your hands really on it too much really. That's fantastic. All we're going to do now is get some plastic wrap, cling film or whatever you call that. Cover that over. Minimum 30 minutes overnight. Fabulous. That's ready to go. Right, there you go. Simple, simple. In the fridge. Lovely. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half roughly. We're then going to roll that out. Okay, so little dusting on each side. You don't want to go crazy with the flour. I'm just going to use my hand at the moment. And then rolling pin, and off we go. I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so I've rolled that out. It's fairly thin, not super thin. Right, there's the tin that I'm using. And what I've done is I've just got a bit of olive oil and I've rubbed that all around. If you wanted, you could use butter. What we're going to do now is drop that in there. So lift up the sides and drop it down in there, so you're getting the pastry right on the edge. You don't really want air in there. You really want to make sure that you've got the pastry stuck on the sides like that. Beautiful. Okay, so once you're comfortable there, fork and just hit that there. Now a lot of people are going to ask me, isn't the filling going to go through the pastry? It actually won't. Perfect. Okay, then we're just going to get our filling and drop that in. And then very simply, we're going to just set this aside and we're going to roll out the top. Okay, and there's our top rolled out, about the same thickness. Let's move on. So back to the pie. I've got one egg that I've just beaten there. We're going to get a little wash around the edges. This is going to help glue the top on nicely. And you can be quite liberal with this. And then I'm going to grab my top and I'm going to put that over. Again, I'm going to give it a little bit of way there, you know, give it a little bit of love so it's not tight. And then we're going to trim that up. So just get yourself a knife and then just go around and trim it. And what I like to do is I like to under trim. I don't want to get it too tight, you know. I don't want a kind of crew cut haircut here. Nice little bit on the edge. Some people go right in there and do it. I just like to hang over the edge a little bit. So let me trim that round and then I'm back. So you've got a nice little bit around the edge. Kind of gives it a bit more of a rustic looking look to it. Now look, I'm just going to simply crimp this. There are many ways of crimping. I'm just going to go with my thumb and finger and just give it a little crimp on the way. Another thing that you can do, which is actually quite nice sometimes, is if you've got a nice long layer there, you can just fold that over and it'll kind of add to the pastry as we do it. But yeah, very simple crimping. And then we're going to get some more of the egg wash on there. Now you need to preheat your oven and get that on right now. So we need it at 190C, which is 375F or gas mark 5. Get that nice and heated before we put this in. Never put a pie in an oven, in a cold oven. You know, you need to get it preheated up, nice temperature. This is only going to go in for like 25 minutes or so, like that. Beautiful. Now I'm just going to go around the edges and get some wash on there. And the only other thing we need to do is get a fork and just, or a knife. You can use a knife or a fork. And then just 1, 2, 3. Okay, so hopefully that's going to cook nicely in the oven and be delicious. See you in about 25 minutes. All right, that is out the oven. Doesn't that look beautiful? Nice golden brown, a nice little sound. Now what you want to do is you want to let that sit and relax for about 10 minutes. Relax, relax. Everything is okay. Relax, relax. Okay, so I've now taken that out of the tin and it looks absolutely beautiful. Let me try and gently just lift that up for you. Look at that. She's a beauty. Okay, should we cut it? Nice knife. Let's cut that down there. And there she goes. That is delicious. Delicious. Beautiful stuff there. Okay, I'm nice and close up there, I think, with the camera. Got that on a plate. Now, don't forget, we made that beautiful, thick, lovely gravy earlier. For that. Delicious, delicious, delicious. Hey, look, I hope you enjoy that. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, please. Give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment and say hello. We like to know that you're fine. We'll see you very, very soon. Steak and kidney pie love.